Hi everyone, my name's Michael, and today on NTF we're going to be talking about Fashion Week and where it started and how COVID has impacted it. To give you a quick little rundown on why designers show at Fashion Week and why Fashion Week exists, the core reasoning is for designers to show their new pieces and their new collections in order for buyers to be interested and see if they're going to want to buy for their store. However, now that times have changed and technology has increased and social media is such an important aspect of all of our lives, Fashion Week has become more of a publicity and a public relations standpoint of the fashion industry. Even though buyers are still invited to shows to see the new pieces that they may want to buy or they don't want to buy, it's also for the consumers and it's also for influencers and celebrities. It's for consumers because even if a consumer doesn't like the show that walked down the catwalk, or they like things but things are just overpriced, they are still now aware of a brand and the brand has now increased their brand awareness and they may go back and buy something. To give a first-hand example, I learned about Jacquemus from a show from 3 years ago, I believe. I think it was 2018, and that was the first time I ever became aware of the brand, and now I love that brand. I haven't purchased anything from it, but I might one day, and it's only because of that one show that I watched. And like I said before, these events are also for influencers and celebrities because even though these individuals have no core reasoning on being there, it's not like they're a buyer. They are using almost like influencer marketing that if you and your favorite influencer are attending a new show, that you are now going to be interested because they're going to be posting about it and they're going to be posting saying, hey, I'm at blank show, which brings more brand awareness to that designer. For example, Emma Chamberlain and recently added Charli D'Amelio are now Louis Vuitton brand ambassadors. Emma Chamberlain, for the past 3 to 4 years, I believe, have been attending the Louis Vuitton shows and just using influencer marketing to bring brand awareness to her demographic. Now that I've given you guys a little bit more about the background of Fashion Week, I'm going to go into details about when Fashion Week is and when designers present. You may not realize it, but there's actually 4 fashion months of the year. You may not realize it because they don't always run for the whole duration of the month, but they always do run for 4 weeks. So for example, January and February are 4 weeks of presenting Paris, Milan, London, and New York, and that's menswear fall winter of that year. So each city, Paris, Milan, London, and New York, each have a week. So 4 weeks compile a month. So this usually runs from the middle of January to the middle of February. Once the menswear month is done, then it goes to the women's wear fall winter of that year. So this usually starts in the middle of February and it goes until the middle of March, and then this is women's wear ready to wear fall winter of the year that they're presenting in. So for example, this past February March was presenting women's wear fall winter 2021. And then the next month is June. So in June, it is men's wear ready to wear spring summer of the following year. So once again, this usually runs through June and sometimes goes into July. This year it's going through July, and this is presenting in Milan, New York, Paris, and London. Once again, they're always presented in the 4 capitals. Some brands after menswear spring summer will then present a resort or a cruise collection, which would be summer attire, but that's a whole different video. And then towards the end of the summer, in September, this is like big fashion week. Like usually September is when women's wear spring summer of the following year once again. And that is the fashion week that most people know about. So yeah, you may not realize it, but there's actually 4 of the 12 months of the year are fashion months because every city has 1 week and there's 4 capitals. So that compiles 4 of the 12 months are presenting shows. So what I just explained is Fashion Week before the pandemic. And even though many brands continue to follow this calendar and follow the way that Fashion Week works, there are many brands that have completely left the fashion calendar and are going to do their own thing. During the pandemic, brands like Gucci, Michael Kors, Yves Saint Laurent, and Bottega Veneta have all announced that they are no longer presenting on fashion calendars, which basically means that they're not going to be presenting their, for example, menswear ready to wear fall winter in the months of January. A lot of people were really disappointed when these brands made this announcement because they thought that this was going to be the end of the catwalk and the runway, which is some people's favorite part of fashion. So far, this hasn't really been the case because many brands are still doing catwalk shows, they're just not presenting it when they're being told to present it. For example, Gucci and Balenciaga just did a collab, and Gucci did say that they're no longer going to be following the fashion calendar, and this was one of the best shows that they've ever done, I think. It was super interesting. It was actually about the counterfeit market. Super interesting. I recommend you guys go check that out. And so far, brands like Yves Saint Laurent, Michael Kors, and all them who have announced that they're no longer doing the fashion calendar have still done shows. They're just doing it on their own time, which I think was a good fit, and it was a time to change. Even though Fashion Week is an exciting time for many, it was a time of change and it was the end of an era. Over COVID, it was super interesting to see how brands adapted to such a crazy pandemic. For obvious reasons, during the pandemic, brands weren't having guests at their shows. Some didn't even do shows at all. They did pictures and they did virtual things or VR and things to that extent. My first favorite was the Jeremy Scott show in September 2020. He definitely took the most interesting approach I've ever seen. He used puppets and miniature animatronics almost and presented a show through these 76-centimeter dolls. There were dolls for the models and the guests, and even in the front row of the little set was Anna Wintour and a little doll sitting right in front. Not only was this super unique and a great way to adapt to such an ever-changing time, who knew that we were going to have a pandemic? Jeremy Scott not only did it, but he did it while also keeping up with his very eccentric brand image. My second favorite was definitely the Balenciaga Show in 2020, where instead of even hosting a catwalk, they sent out 330 Oculus glasses to guests. And the invitation to the guests were to attend the VR event using the Oculus glasses. And when the people invited put on the Oculus glasses and they saw the show, they were able to see all the looks, and they even made it look like a video game. And then once the show was presented and they saw all the looks from the show, they were prompted to play the video game that Balenciaga created, where all of the models from the show were players in the game wearing the looks. Overall, super interesting and probably never done before, and maybe never done again. Balenciaga really pulled through with that show and did one of the most unique things, and I don't really think it's appreciated enough. And now that we finally see the light at the end of the tunnel of this pandemic, Fashion Week is finally coming back for the brands that are attending. Dior and Hermes have announced that they will be having guests at their shows. However, brands like Gucci and Saint Laurent are staying virtual. Now, many people think that in a year from now, in a couple months from now, when vaccines have been continued to roll out and cases have starting to drop even more, that we're going to turn phygital. So the term phygital is just the combination between physical and digital. However, using this in terms of the fashion industry, a lot of people think that brands are going to continue with this phygital mindset of maybe sending out invitations to a virtual live event where they can attend. Balenciaga did it in, I believe, September or maybe March of 2021, where everyone got invited and then they almost FaceTimed in to the show and their cameras were on the seats of the live event. However, no one was actually at the event because it was still in the middle of the pandemic. That is a perfect example of what phygital is. They're combining the physical aspect of attending a show, however, they're keeping it digital. Overall, it's just really interesting to see how Fashion Week is adapting to each brand and how brands are adapting to Fashion Week. For example, if brands are going to have guests, or if they're going to be physical or a digital event, or they're going to be a phygital event. It's all very up in the air, and brands doing it in a very unique way, I think, creates great traction and creating great brand awareness. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm so excited to see where Fashion Week goes in the future, because 2 years ago today, no one would ever know that this is where Fashion Week was at today. I'm Michael with NTF. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope everybody has a great day.